Our next guest went vegan because she herself was facing some health issues, and she had to figure out how to address them. And it's interesting when a physician has to figure out health issues and her own health issues. And so Mary Clifton Wendt, or Mary Wendt now, she was Mary Clifton when I interviewed her on my radio show. She's now Mary Wendt, so she practices in Duluth, Minnesota, and she is the co-author of 3 books: Waste Away, How to Joyfully Lose Weight and Supercharge Your Life, and Get Wasted, 100 Addictively Delicious Plant-Based Entrees. And plant-based, by the way, is vegan, 100% vegan, 100% plant-based. And also Get Graduated, and she is the co-owner of the vegan weight loss program, Get Wasted. So now you hear her personal story and how she can help you with weight loss. Please welcome Mary Wendt.
Might see if I can dismount this so we can move around a little bit together. Thank you. That was so sweet. You should hold your applause. You might just hate the whole presentation, then you'll be sorry you applauded in the first place. But no, thank you so much for having me. I'm here from Minnesota, super cold, very long way away, and just absolutely loving this great city. We have had so much fun. My cousin is in the front row here. I've been staying with her in Mill Valley and went to your beautiful ferry building. And we've been all over Sausalito and Mill Valley and up to Fairfax to see Mioto's Cheese Kitchen. We just had a lovely time, and seeing, of course, the Veg News co-founders. You guys have such a great community here, and really, really a lot of fun for us. So I'll jump right into this. What I'm going to do is change my slides up here, and we're having a little technical thing. So when I change this slide, then that'll just be your cue, and that way I won't have to hassle you. But I have these nutrient composition charts all through all of my books, and I love these charts because it was part of the inspiration, but also just really straightforward science for me to feel very confident in making my own transition to a plant-based diet many years ago. Because this talk is really going to be about how to help you transition if you are transitioning to a plant-based diet, or if you're advocating and working with people to transition, how you can more effectively do that. My program, Get Wasted, has 2 tracks. It has the Foodie Detox, which is 100% vegan, very low calorie, very rapid weight loss, or you can do the 4 steps to success, which is where I'm going to base this talk today, which is a modification, a slow, steady improvement in your diet so that you can get healthier and lose weight. But I'll also tell you why I think it's really important to focus on plant-based proteins and fats. So hopefully it'll be valuable for everyone. But I love these slides because, making comparisons to plant-based foods versus animal-based foods, you are always going to come on top when you choose a plant-based food over an animal food. And what this is 500 calories of energy. So 500 calories worth of food. Either if you're choosing plants, this is a pile of tomatoes, spinach, lima beans, peas, and potatoes. Or if you're choosing animals, it's equal parts of beef, pork, chicken, and whole milk. And so you can think immediately that there's probably a different size to that pile, right? So when you're working with people who are trying to change their diet, or if you yourself are changing your diet, you're going to find that the square footage issue is a problem. It's not a problem when you start, but it's a problem about 6 weeks after you change your diet, and people also have trouble with square footage about 6 months after they change their diet. You may know some people who say, I tried to eat this plant-based diet, it was working really well, I was losing weight, I'm feeling good, but I don't know, I just got hungry and I quit. Usually what's happening there is they're eating this higher amount of food because each bite of food is lower in calorie. Like a bite of beef with gravy is a much higher calorie bite than a bite of peas and potatoes or beans and potatoes. So you're going to have to eat more bites of food. And you can do that for a while, but then you start to think, like, look at this massive pile of food I eat. I'm such a pig. I can't eat this much food. I've got to cut these calories. These portions are huge. So then you cut your portions, and then you get hungry, and then you snack between meals, and then you fall off of your new diet plan. So make sure when you're working with people or when you're thinking about yourself, remember that these portion sizes get bigger, and you've got to be willing to do that. But I absolutely love what happens when you change your calories over to plant-based calories. You get rid of the cholesterol. There's a very small amount of plant sterols, cholesterol in the walls of plants, but not a high amount of cholesterol in the plants in general. And then look at the difference in the fat. I'm not a no-fat vegan or a no-oil vegan. I like to have a little bit of extra fat in my diet. I eat avocados and nuts. I don't go crazy over it, but even if you choose not to have added oils, you still get tons of fat from healthy, whole foods. So you don't have to worry that your fat's going to drop so low that you're going to struggle to make hormones or other transport messenger materials that are primarily made from fat in your system. And then when you separate out the beta carotene, the fiber, vitamin C, folate, vitamin E, absolutely gorgeous. The numbers are so much higher when you're choosing plants compared to animals that you're just automatically setting yourself up for a really high level of success. The iron is higher in plant-based foods, but it doesn't absorb the same way as a heme iron. So people may argue with you two things. They may say that the iron in a plant-based diet is going to not absorb, and also that it gets bound up in the fiber when a plant-based diet. And that both of those are true in different ways. Plant-based iron absorbs as needed. Your body can regulate the absorption of plant-based iron. Whereas if your body is presented with heme iron, with iron from animal blood, then that iron is going to absorb without management. The body really has no ability to stop the absorption of that iron if it has too much. So plant irons are able to be modified. And the other great thing about plant irons is that you can modify the absorption based on need, but you also have to have vitamin C to absorb any iron, because it's a cofactor in your small intestine. So when you're eating vegetables, you're automatically getting a great high dose of vitamin C with almost any vegetable. So you can make sure that you have this cofactor in place to absorb your iron. So even if it's not as readily absorbable as the heme, even if it perhaps does bind a little bit to fiber, which we'll talk about later, don't worry one bit about that. And look at the calcium. Just gorgeous. No worries about calcium, but we'll talk about that a little bit later too, because there's a lot of good things to worry about with your bones, a lot of things to think about. So the thing that would just be so amazing is if your doctor would work to do something or your healthcare provider would work to do something for you that would help you to prevent disease, instead of giving you a medication that would result in you being engaged in a relationship with the pharmaceutical industry for the rest of your life, right? Ideally, we could give you some great lifestyle modifications. You could take those and run, and then you could see us once a year for quick examination and then get back on with your really fun life. And that is really not that impossible for us to do. This is a Puerto Rican study that was just a 6-month-long randomized controlled trial. What we did was asked healthcare providers in Puerto Rico to just ask their patients to please eat more fruits and vegetables. That's it. It wasn't even a straightforward message. It wasn't 5 a day or try to eat fruit for breakfast. It was just, would you just please eat more fruits and vegetables? And that's a very vague message, really. I mean, the tighter the message, the better off you're going to be with getting the message forward. So it was a pretty vague message. But these people, aged 25 to 64 years, went home and ate 1.4 more portions of fruit and vegetables a day, just with that crummy message, that no good message. And it ended up increasing plasma concentrations of alpha beta carotene, beta cryptoxanthin, ascorbic acid, decreased systolic and diastolic blood pressure, such that the research said if this measure was applied to our population, we would be able to see reductions in cardiovascular disease in the general population. Just this. So if you're advocating, or if you're thinking yourself, I should eat an apple a day, I should just add a little more vegetable, there's this animal to vegetable ratio that's really valuable. So if you can't go 100%, or if you can't figure out how to help people go 100%, you can sometimes make just this tiny modification. My job is as a hospitalist, and I'm in the hospital all day. And I have a million funny stories about that. But I am amazed at the number of people when I do a 24-hour food recall and just ask what you've eaten for the last 24 hours. The average fiber concentration in the diet of my hospitalized patients is somewhere around 4 to 6 grams a day. They eat some eggs and some white toast for breakfast. They eat a ham and cheese sandwich for lunch on a little white bread. Maybe they go crazy and have some wheat bread. And then they have meat and possibly a serving of vegetables, but you don't want to overdo it. Just a little pile of peas or something. It's unbelievable. So if I can just ask, would you just please consider removing that breakfast meat or that breakfast egg? Can you replace that with oatmeal? A lot of people over the age of 50 can easily do that. Young people are kind of used to different breakfast foods, and oatmeal is a very strange food to a lot of young people. But that one transition, doubles these people's fiber, really makes them very healthy. So, and I don't think that the animals really care if we just take it one meal at a time and help people go real slow at the pace they can. You can be really effective with just that advice. So think about it, because that tiny little bit of change actually ends up making a big difference. And so, but some people would feel more comfortable if I was up here as a medical doctor telling you about a brand new drug. So I'm going to tell you about a fictitious drug. This is totally fake. I made it up. It's called Snebenacir. We developed this in Minnesota, driven by poor patient compliance, because the problem that we have is that nobody will take their pills. And if they would just take their pills, I could solve all of their problems. But if patients have one pill, I can only get them to take it about 80% of the time. 2 pills, 60%. 2 pills divided in time, morning and night, I'm down to 40% compliance. So what I really need is a pill that will solve all of the American problems that my patients deal with that comes in just one pill. Snebenacir came from that, because all of my patients in the hospital have extra weight, they've got some blood sugar trouble, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. It'd be nice if it would cut their risk for heart disease and cancer, and everybody's got a little GERD, they need a little Pepcid or a little reflux medicine. Everybody's constipated, and everybody's worried about unhealthy colonic bacteria. So it'd be nice if it had like a probiotic in it, and we could get them to have healthy colons too. So this is my fictitious drug, Snebenacir. Decreases diabetes risk by 40%, resolves 80% of hypertension in 6 weeks, reduces coronary artery disease by up to 90%, controlling depression in as little as 6 weeks, normalizing cholesterol, controls GERD and constipation, reduces body weight by about 40 pounds, protects from Alzheimer's disease, and you can see healthier colonic flora in just 2 weeks. Because there's data, right, on rheumatoid arthritis that we've known for years that because of the animals in the diet, they create a different acidity in their colon, and different types of bacteria like to hang around rotting meat compared to plants, and those bacteria are associated with the development of rheumatoid arthritis symptoms systemically. So Snebenacir is actually rice and beans spelled backwards. Because I think where this movement really comes apart, what we're really giving you bad advice on, and I apologize for this, is the 5 a day. Eat your fruits and vegetables. Because I'm a grown woman. I'm doing stuff all day. And I can't get full on fruits and vegetables. And I can't keep it going on fruits and vegetables. And I'm not the only one. When I was in Washington, D.C. a couple of years ago at a PCRM event with Neil Barnard, I was going back to the airport. And I had this wonderful cabbie. And he said, "What are you doing in D.C.?" So I told him, I love nutrition and wellness. I'm here meeting with one of the thought leaders to think about how to move his processes forward, just having a blast. And he said, "I think it's a good idea to eat your fruits and vegetables." And he says, "Look at me. I wear an 80-pound fat suit." He said, "This is not me. I have always been just this gorgeous man in this body, and I don't know what's happened to me. But here I am with all of this fat that hangs from me." And he said, "Every now and then I think I'm going to do something about this. I'm going to get myself healthy. So I go to the grocery store, I buy $80 worth of fruits and vegetables, and I put them on the passenger seat, and I eat them." And he said, "I don't know. 2 days later, I go get a hamburger. I don't know why." because he's hungry. I mean, you can't get full on fruits and vegetables. But if you eat red beans, you get a higher antioxidant concentration than almost any fresh fruit or vegetable that I can offer you. So it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be complicated to find. It's really very simple to eat the rice and beans. Oh, this has a little bit of a build out on my slide deck. And this is... It's expensive, right? And it's really hard to find. The weekend before last, or maybe it was last weekend, part of my job is to go to underserved areas and do the hospital work for a period of time so that the doctors in that area can get a break and take a breather and keep working in the underserved area. So I was in Worthington, Minnesota, southwest Minnesota, a couple 4 hours away from my home for a long weekend, for a 72-hour run a couple of weekends ago. A town of 10,000 people, 4,000 of whom are employed at the local slaughterhouse. So this is not an environment that I can really talk in. About the only thing that I can get close with is fiber, because nobody's going to lynch me if I say high fiber in a slaughterhouse town, but I certainly cannot talk a vegan or veg conversation with anybody. But anyway, so there I was. The interesting thing, 4,000 people in the slaughterhouse, 55 languages represented in this tiny American town. So we had a robot, our hospital had a robot, and you put the robot in the patient room, and when you were working with the patient talked into the robot, and then the robot gave you the English language version of what was being said. No kidding. So after work, I was like, where do you eat? Well, everybody said, go to the ground round. You can go to the steakhouse. You can. So there's nothing for me to eat in your town. So they said there's a good Mexican joint. So I went to the El Taco, and it is a good Mexican joint. It's so good. And plus you get to watch Mexican American Idol as it's going. That was fun. And Viva la Mexico all over the wall. And I said, I just want rice and beans, no meat, no dairy. So she brought this out. There's that little gingham napkin in the back, and under that is the most delicious corn tortilla ever. Oh my Lord. So that meal was really wonderful. I got it in the middle of nowhere, where half of the people around me worked for the slaughterhouse, for $5.60. You can do this anywhere, and it's delicious. You know, all those green things are yummy bits of avocado cut up with tomato and a little cilantro. I mean, it was good. So if you can, the other great thing about a beans and rice message is that if you choose the proper macronutrients, the micronutrients take care of themselves. Look for sources of protein and fats that are going to be plant-based, and you're going to automatically move into an area where you've got high concentrations of all the micronutrients you're looking for. You don't need to eat from the rainbow every day. You don't need to, I've been writing these blog posts every week for my Get Wasted team, and every week I look up cauliflower or red peppers or Brussels sprouts or whole grains, and all of the same nutrients are repeated across the entire vegetable kingdom in the same percentages. So as long as you're eating some healthy vegetable foods, it would be great if some of your food was fresh, and some of it should be raw every day. But you shouldn't pressure yourself to be too complicated and frustrated by your diet. So these are some people who benefited from a healthy diet. This is me on my hula hoop in my living room. Does anybody else hula hoop in here? I got one hula hooper though. I got a hula hooper. Don't you love it? I love the hula hoop. So super fun. I have a weighted one. Do you have a weighted one? Oh yeah, you can get really strong on a weighted hula hoop. So this is me in my living room acting like a goofball. And I didn't know I was sick. It was 7 or 8 years ago. I went to my doctor. He said, wow, what are you doing? What do you eat? How do you move? And I was like, well, if you must know. So I'm really thinking I had it going on. And then I saw him in the hallway 3 days later in the hospital, and he said, Mary, your blood sugar is pre-diabetic. You're running about 125, and we make a diagnosis of diabetes at 126. And I said, well, John, you obviously made a mistake and put somebody else's blood in the machine under my name. And he said, Mary, we never do that. So I went home and checked it about 100 times in my own office, and it turns out I was a daggum pre-diabetic. Unbelievable. I mean, I ate, an egg or some milk on cereal in the morning. I ate a cherry chicken salad for lunch. I ate meat and potato and veggie at dinner. What was wrong? And I exercised like crazy. So then I went home and read, and after about 12 or 14 hours of the first nutrition education I got in my whole life, and that is no joke. It made sense. The only option is to really switch over to whole grains and beans. But it took me another 6 weeks to do it because I didn't believe I could nourish myself until I spent a lot of time looking at the data. I didn't believe it would be possible. And then I converted and took 60 points off my cholesterol and 30 points off my blood sugar, and that was wonderful. This is my girlfriend, Kelly, who is one of 10 research scientists. I spoke for osteoporosis for 8 years all over the country and had a ton of fun with working on developing osteoporosis medications and increasing their adoption by doctors all over the country, and learned a lot about how to talk to people. And Kelly is a research scientist who does osteoporosis research. If you don't feel like changing your diet, we have a lot of medications that can prop you up for a very long time and can extend your life. Western medicine is good at it. It's not as good as a lifestyle. And osteoporosis responds far better to exercise and alkaline diets than it will to any of the medications that we can offer you. Except we do have a few really nice medications for people who really need to. I mean, one of the medications, going off on a different angle, but when people can't get certain neurological surgeries and they've had motor vehicle accidents, Western medicine can save the day. We have these injectable medications that build bone at the level of a teenager, and then all of a sudden people have a neck again where they didn't have a neck. So some of these drugs were really fun to use and see miraculous results. But Kelly was involved in that for a long time. And after I had known her for possibly 6 months, we were working on a project together. She complained about knee pain. She's in her 8th grade genes. That's my almost 14-year-old daughter next to her. She's so strong and healthy, but she runs every single day on her treadmill in her exercise room off of her bedroom, 3 miles. And she can't run because her knees were hurting her so much all day long. And she couldn't not run because she had to run because she's in her 8th grade genes for a reason. So I talked to her a little bit about the relationship between omega-6 fats and the concentration of omega-6 fats in animal-based foods. Omega-6 fats, when they break down into painful prostaglandins. And if you have pain, and you take a Motrin or an Aleve or an aspirin or a naproxen, one of those medicines to try to relieve the pain, and it works, what you're doing is you're preventing the breakdown of these omega-6 fats into painful prostaglandins. It specifically stops the breakdown of arachidonic acid into painful prostaglandins. So the best thing to do if you're dealing with a lot of joint pain and arthritis pain or migraine pain or period pain is to just not have the arachidonic acid in the system. And then you won't be able to generate those inflammatory, painful prostaglandins. So Kelly's a scientist. She went home, and then she called me the next day and said, I've studied your diet for 8 hours, and I just am calling you to tell you that I'm vegan. Oh, well, that's great. So then, she's so cute. So then about 3 weeks later, she called me and said, no knee pain. My knee pain's gone. That's amazing. And then you get better results when you keep your total fat content of your body low, because then you don't have to turn over a lot of storage omega-6 fats. So it might take more like 6 or 8 weeks for somebody who isn't as scrawny as she is. But then after that, her energy got so much better that one morning she was running and got to 3 miles, and she was like, I know I'm going to pay for this, but I feel too good. So she ran 5 miles instead of 3 miles. And then she woke up the next morning, perfect, no pain. So then she ran 5 miles a day for a really long time. And then she got involved in a new medication and was involved in the national launch of that new multiple sclerosis pill. That's not an injection, it's a pill. And she couldn't exercise, and it's working out fine. She can maintain her body weight perfectly without having to kill herself every day at the gym, because it's a plant-based diet. And plant-based eaters can eat somewhere around 300 calories more than meat eaters. We really don't know why, but we think it's because of the higher concentration of omega-3 fats in the cell walls, right? Because your cell walls, healthy fat, I mean, we all know where excess fat goes and where it stores, but when you're using healthy fats and you're turning over fats in your body, a lot of your fat is stored in your cell walls. It's a double layer of fats that tuck their ends together and then make this two-layer fat sort of cell membrane. It's not actually a wall, it's a membrane. But it has to be permeable and squishy and somewhat soft, but it has to keep the stuff that stays inside the cell in and leave the stuff that should be outside of the cell out. When these cell walls are heavy with omega-6 fats, they're inflexible and they're a little bit harder to work with as a team because it's harder to get transport proteins to wiggle across. Some of these transport proteins need to bend and curve into the cell, and if there's a lot of stiff omega-6 fats in the wall, they kind of get into the cell and then they break off. And hey, I'm here in California. It was actually data in Berkeley that looked at the brains of people on heavy omega-6 fats diets. We don't know what some of these proteins are doing, but some of the proteins that you really need inside your brain cells are manufactured elsewhere and they wiggle across. And then the problem with these heavy omega-6 central nervous systems is that those proteins get halfway across and they break off. We think that's where some of the memory loss and Alzheimer's occurs and why it's associated with a high-fat diet. So when you have these healthy omega-3s, the cells are very squishy. It's easy for the cells to talk because the proteins can move across each other. But the other thing they are is squishy, and they're a little bit leaky. So the sodium-potassium channels have to work a little bit harder because the sodium and potassium levels are different on the inside and the outside of the cells. So we think that some of the excess calories that you're burning and the weight loss that vegans get to enjoy just sort of naturally is because of that reason, because the cells are a little bit squishier. This is my husband. He's just fabulous. So you can get whichever you want with this diet. I didn't actually think I would ever get married again. And then I went to Veg Summerfest a couple of years ago. And I thought, maybe I'll find a fellow here. And then I was like, are you nuts? Like, do you actually think there is a vegan man at Summerfest? And then, I mean, whatever, because this is a movement for women, right? Well, it turns out there's a million fabulous vegan men, and I got one. So there he is. It took a long time. Apparently, my daughter wanted a broken arm because she went to Veg Summerfest last summer and busted her arm. So, I don't know. Oh, well. But anyway, so he's on this mission to run a marathon. He ran one. He was heavy, and he had a cholesterol of 400. And then he went vegan and dropped his cholesterol to 200 and lost 60 pounds. And then he thought, I'll run a marathon. So he ran a marathon. And then he thought, I'll run another marathon. And then he heard about this club where everybody's running a marathon in 50 states. So now my crazy husband is in the 50 Marathon Club running marathon number 43 in Hartford, Connecticut yesterday. In 43 states. He's run 47 marathons, but he's run 43 states. So he's hilarious. Really funny, and we're having a blast. His mother was a goner. The reason the whole family went veg was because she had bypass surgery. And the doctor said, you know, I bypassed what I could. It's a total mess in there. Go home and get your affairs in order. It's over for you. And then she said, why is this happening to me? And the doctor said, it's your genetics. So then her husband went to the library, and he came home and said, Janice, we're vegan. Okay. So then they went vegan, and Janice lost a pile of weight, and she is so funny. And she's still here 25 years later, the girl who was supposed to get her affairs in order. No pills. She doesn't take a single pill. So Mark did it too, because that cholesterol is going to kill him if he doesn't. But he's doing very well now. Anyway, so the best way, if you're thinking about doing this yourself, maybe you're thinking, I'll take a run at this. What could it hurt? Or maybe you're working with somebody and thinking, I'd like to, help people a little bit more effectively. The first thing people do is they start to take a food log. I'm going to write down every bite I eat. Don't do that. The data is from Susan Roberts has done, I think she's with Yale now, she's done at least 40 studies on this. Food logs are notoriously unreliable. Very skinny people, very fat people, completely unreliable, but everybody is unreliable. Nobody writes stuff down. So the very best thing to do is a 24-hour food recall. What did you eat for breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, and drinks, and then divide it up to animal, vegetable, and processed. And you can get a pretty good idea of where you're at. And this is why food logs don't work, because people say, oh, I eat a ton of fruits and vegetables. I buy them every week. Well, right. You buy the bananas, you hang them on the little banana hook in your kitchen, and then you walk past them on the way to the cookie jar. And then you walk past them again. You're like, there's my bananas. Nothing got actually in your mouth and swallowed to where it's doing you any good. And people do the same thing with their lettuce. And then they take it out of the fridge and they throw it away. And then there you have it. They're vegetable eaters, but they didn't eat any vegetables. So do this 24-hour food recall. That's the way to do it. And then people will say, well, no, wait a minute. This isn't exactly the way I usually eat. You know, well, yeah, it is. It really is. What you eat for the last 24 hours is kind of the way you eat. This is my Don Draper look-alike. Anybody else a Don Draper fanatic? Oh my God, love that show. So it's okay to go veg. Fit your meat portion into the okay sign that you make with your index finger and your thumb. And start there. That's going to get you at about 2 ounces a day, which is considered a high-consuming, meat-eating female in France or Germany. When they put people on a continuum from vegan all the way up to high consumption in France and Germany, that's a high consuming female. So now my brother, who just died of colon cancer, will tell you that that will fit a hot dog perfectly. That's not the idea. But that's a good place to get started. When you want to be fabulous, you can get your meat and dairy consumption under your thumb. And if you put it under your thumb, you're going to be at about 100 calories a day. That's a pat of butter. It's, you know, 1 bite of meat. And that is actually just as good as being 100% vegan by all the studies. Now, if you're doing it for environmental, you're doing it for animals, you have like a broader moral or social agenda, I'm totally behind you doing it 100%. If you're doing it for health, you can get away with this 95% is as good as 100 message. And it'll be just great. I have all these adorable vegetables with their thumbs up. I came across them, I felt like I just won the lottery. Here I was thinking about under your thumb, but isn't that tomato as cute as he can be? So that's less than 100 calories per day. 95% is as good as 100. I already told you that. Sorry about that. So thinking about modifying your meals now, just spend a minute on this. This is from Antonio Damas's work in New York. She lives in New York, but she works a lot in Baltimore, in the food deserts in Baltimore. Most people eat about 9 meals. They eat about 9 meals for dinner. And I had the same expression you have, like, I eat a wide, varied diet, I eat a lot of interesting food. When I sat down with a pen and paper, I eat 9 meals. Maybe 7. I mean, I rotate through the same meals over and over again. So the idea here is that if you're rotating through meatloaf and you rotate it out and you replace meatloaf night with Cajun red beans and rice, then everything changes. This is why I love those plant versus animal, little charts that I have in all my books, because I actually do have the Cajun red beans and rice compared to the meatloaf, and you can just be like, oh my gosh, that's going to change my world. So you have, within this rotation, 3 meals that are easy, delicious, they're already animal-free, you're well on your way to being fabulous. Pasta night, burrito night, salad night. You've got 3 meals that you could modify without a whole lot of work, and then you could be even more fabulous. So like chicken stir-fry could turn into veggie stir-fry with brown rice. Veggie burgers instead of a hamburger, right? These are pretty simple. Just a vegetable soup or a vegetable stew instead of a meat stew. And then you could try 3 new meals. I have kind of a funny story, and I feel like we're doing okay on time. I was working on this, and I was thinking of this. There was a pasta dish, and it had some toasted bread on the top of it. And not only was it plant-based, but it was also like practically free to make because you could use old bread that you were going to throw out. So it was swirling horrible snow up in Michigan. I was living in Michigan at the time, and my daughter was home finishing her last 2 years of medical school and living with me again. So it was me and my 2 girls. Anyway, I said, you know, girls, if I can cook this and you guys like it, this is going to cost us like less than $1 a person. This is so cheap. It's totally plants, and I can't wait to try it. Let's see. Well, I put it together, and I burnt the little toasted bread things and the pasta, and it ended up just being completely awful. It was like paste. It was awful. It was like worse than paste. And it was one of those nights where it was snowing so bad that they say, if you leave your home, I don't know if you guys get this here, but in Michigan they say, if you leave your home and you get in an accident, we will ticket you for leaving your home. Like it's that, you don't leave your home tonight. We left home. Like you couldn't eat there. It stunk. And we went down and ate downtown. So there are some times that you pull something out and you're like, this is our brand new fun thing to eat. And it's awful. It just doesn't work. And you made a big mistake and you stubbed your toe. And that's fine. You just stub your toe. You just go get some takeout and then you get back on the program the next day. And it doesn't come into your 9 recipe rotation, but it was fun to try and it makes for some good stories. But other meals are really easy. The thing that I love for breakfast is 2 fruits. If you can figure out how to get fruit in for breakfast, I mean, I think that when I get down to it and I'm visiting with other speakers in the evening, or I'm talking with people, you know, in different, any situation I find of somebody who knows food, they're eating fruit for breakfast. They eat a couple pieces of fruit. Great complex carbohydrates, also some very nice simple carbohydrates that are easy for you to digest and ready and available, and you don't get that bogged down thing that you get when you're eating meat and dairy for breakfast, so you can just cruise right up till lunch. You can eat 1 piece and then save another piece for a mid-morning snack. It's really a good way to go. Get the yogurt out of your smoothies, nobody needs that, and oatmeal is just such a lovely breakfast choice. And lunch is really simple too. You know, a burger becomes a veggie burger. Sandwich could be a veggie wrap. Everywhere you go, they have a vegan soup that has lentils in it that's easy to eat. And my cherry chicken salad just went to like a Mexican fiesta salad with beans and salsa and a few tortilla chips. And I'm so full and happy after lunch. And then for snacks, I really encourage all the folks who are heavy into cheese and yogurt and they like something that is cool and savory to switch over to hummus. It's just such a wonderful conversion. And then you're getting more beans. And I'm sure you all know about the second meal effect with beans, that when you eat beans at one meal, the way that they digest across your system results in a very slow absorption of the sugar from the beans, of any of the complex carbohydrates. But then in addition to that, it results in a reduction in the insulin and blood sugar response to the second meal. So if you just eat beans once a day, it results in the next meal being digested in a healthier way. So they're really great to bring into every single meal if you can. But if you can add some beans here and there, you'll really do well with keeping your sugars balanced. And dinner, like I said, is hard. It's hard or it's not. It's just beans and rice. And there's nothing to the whole, you have to eat a whole grain and a bean and you have to have them at a proper ratio or you're not going to get complete proteins. What we found out was that was some 1960s, some bad science. And actually all of these plant proteins have perfect amounts of amino acids, but you would consider some amino acids to be less overly abundant than others. So you could literally live on brown rice. And actually, you can look to Mother Teresa for proof. Mother Teresa did this to her. God, I mean, I don't have it in me. I love her work, but good Lord, those women, they are really good at limiting themselves, you know, to just a very minimalist lifestyle. I'm all about minimalist, but not quite that much. But if she has enough money to heat the orphanage or cook the food for the nuns, she heats the orphanage and then she gives the nuns soaked rice. And then they eat soaked rice, which is actually a super healthy thing. But they had a dietitian come in and the dietitian said, Mother Teresa, you have to feed your nuns something besides soaked brown rice. They can't survive on that. That's not reasonable. And she said, absolutely, of course, prove it. Show me the deficiency and then I'll correct their diets. And there is no deficiency. You can actually live on soaked brown rice like for your whole life. You'd be about that big around because I'd have about 5 bites and I'd be like, lunch is over. I mean, it's not delicious, but you can totally get by on all of these whole grains and beans. You don't have to go through all kinds of somersaults and backflips to make sure that they're in the proper ratio. Don't worry about that anymore. Was that in Diet for a Small Planet, or was that? Yeah. Bad science. We can all just put that behind us. So, and if you like to drink things, drink things. Water is great, tea is great, coffee's good for antioxidant levels. Green tea is about, 5 or 6 times better than black tea. Hibiscus tea is like 16 times better than green tea. So if you can find any tea that is the red zinger tea, the tea that turns red in the glass, and then you can just choose that all day long. You're getting this low concentration of antioxidants all day, which is really critical stuff because we burn, we're burning all the time. You're metabolizing, you're chewing, you're breathing, you're blinking. Look at you blink. So you're burning all of this energy. So you need to be able to manage all of the oxidative stress you're putting your body through. So if you're always drinking a little bit of tea, you're always giving yourself this low level of antioxidants for no calories, and it's protecting you from cancer and heart disease. It's just wonderful stuff. So choose some really great teas. This is just another slide that you guys probably don't need because this is all old stuff you already know. The cancer prevention study that's being done in France and Germany since 1982, 148,600 people being followed since then. And what they find is that vegetarians are less likely to develop cancer. We knew that. People who eat the highest meat intake are higher risk of cancer. We knew that. But what I love about this study is their definition of heavy meat eaters. So a heavy meat eater in France or Germany as a female is 2 ounces, as a man is 3 ounces. That's just really got to sink in here, doesn't it, in the U.S.? Because we're just in some crazy meat-eating island. Now, if you live in Africa, you're at 1 ounce a day of meat on average. If you live across Asia, you're well under 1 ounce a day. And I don't have to tell you how fabulous and lean and strong and healthy the whole continent is, really, and how full of energy and what kind of valuable contributions they're making to the world. So you can live very, very well on this diet. Oh, this builds out. I've got to correct that build out. I love this slide because this is what I do all day when I'm standing in the hospital, even in the middle of Slaughterhouse, Minnesota. I stand on one leg and then I'll do your history and then I have a computer in the room. So as I'm visiting with you and getting your data, I'm working on my balance. So by the end of a day, I can get a lot of strengthening done. And sometimes you can like tilt your pelvis back or move forward, just try to work on different balancing. So it's a ton of fun. But this is how I look most of the day. But getting strong bones has to do with calcium, certainly, because your bones have to be mineralized. And your bones are primarily a protein matrix that gets mineralized. So the calcium has to be there. But you saw in that old slide, remember, that there's calcium in whole grains and beans and fruits and vegetables, especially dark green leafies and whole grains. So you're getting enough calcium, but more importantly, you're maintaining an alkaline environment. In this process of working with osteoporosis for so many years, I've had opportunity to visit with thought leaders that, I get very excited about. That I'm sure if I told you that I had dinner with David Dempster, you'd be like, really? But that was one of the highlights of my life. And I visited with him about osteoclasts and osteoblasts and activating these bone, the cells that clean out dirty bone or that sweep away bone, especially in postmenopausal women that get hyperactive. And how they work. Now, that was his data. The data that he was referring to was data he published in 1986, which was the year Chelsea was born, my older daughter. That was fun. But this was published data in 1986 on rat osteoclasts. If you just change the cellular milieu to be just a little bit acidic at the microcellular level, these osteoclasts, these cleaning cells, that they love it. Because the way that they clean bone is they lay down on top of the bone, the cell, they attach themselves, and then they create this little hill, and underneath the hill they secrete a bunch of high acid stuff. So it's kind of like a little scrubbing action chemical thing. It's not actually through digging, it's through chemistry that the bone gets worn away. So if you increase the acidity of that environment just a bit, they love it. They love it because it makes their job so much easier to just sweep away bone. So creating this alkaline environment in your body, the easiest way to think about this because everybody's under a time pressure, but I'm always under a time pressure. So I always try to think of how to say this in 10 seconds or less. But running the meat through the GI tract, you have to keep the GI tract more acidic for a longer period of time. And you end up having just a more acidic environment, both in the GI tract and at the microcellular level. And all of the transfer of acidic versus alkaline and how they manage that is a really fun, very interesting, complex system. But if you're going to be running a lot of meat through the GI tract, you're going to have a higher level of acid at the cellular level. And that's just going to make it very easy to sweep bone away. The other thing it does is you run this higher acid urine out of your system. If you're eating a lot of meat, you're going to have to pee off a lot of acid. And you don't pee sparks, right? That's what we learned in medical school. You have to balance out the acid. So your body will dump a little calcium in your urine. Just like if you have a little reflux after dinner, you take a little Tums. And that's exactly what your body does. Your urine is too acidic, you dump a little calcium in the urine, and then the urine's not so acidic anymore, and it's not going to cause problems. But that calcium in the urine promotes kidney stones, and it also is leached from your bone, unless you're dumping a bunch of blue cheese on top of your steak. In which case, God help you. Because that is just fat. Don't do that. Everybody says, I'm getting a little protein from my cheese. And I used to do that when I was eating this healthy diet. When I got sick, I would have a little cheese in the middle of my morning and in the middle of my afternoon. All fat. Not good for you. And so highly promoting of autoimmune disease, because the other thing that we've determined in just the last 18 months is that when you're eating animal protein and milk proteins, they induce some low-level inflammation in the lining of your small intestine. So as you're trying to digest them, some of them, before they're thoroughly digested, are crossing over into your bloodstream. And the unfortunate thing there is that you have an animal protein that's still not thoroughly digested, that's swimming around your bloodstream. So your body sees this foreign protein, sees a foreign body, and creates an immunoglobulin response to it, activates the immune system to cover it with immunoglobulins and protect you from it. So two things just happened there. You just created an immune system response to an animal protein, and you are an animal. So those immune system responses cross over and cause problems with your thyroid and your pancreas. 100% of kids with type 1 diabetes have high concentrations of anti-dairy antibodies in their blood when they're diagnosed. And all kinds of diseases have an association there. So, and the other thing you've done is you have this animal protein in the blood that's now covered with a big puffy layer of immunoglobulins. Now you have this big matte thing sort of floating around your system, and it's going to get trapped in places, in your spleen, in your liver, in the tiny capillaries around your joints, and making your joints ache. So really important to keep these inflammatory proteins out of your gut so that they don't cross over and give you trouble. You are a super duper slide person. Really good. Just a quick comment on olive oil. I love adding a bit of oil to food. It makes it so palatable, and I know that there's a no oil crowd within this movement, and I respect what they're doing. And my husband's actually no oil, and I think he kind of has to be because he manufactures so much cholesterol even at a no oil. But there is some data from the Loma Linda population that women did better as a small amount of pescatarian. And fish is a very concentrated source of omega-3 fats, healthy fish. So I think the women were getting benefit from adding a little bit of fat. Now, I'm not talking about tons of fat. And it's also key to think about the types of fat that you're adding to your diet in order to consider being perfectly healthy. The very best fat's going to come from a handful of nuts or from an avocado. And then if you can't get a hold of that, then a little bit of oil is a nice selection to add. And if you can't get a hold of that, then I would skip any kind of saturated fat source like butter or sour cream or anything, because the difference between animal fats and then switching over to processed plant foods is a really huge difference, and it's not worth transitioning back. But very, very rich in calories, very, very rich in fat, and it's a processed food. A whole olive is just 15% oil. So you're squeezing these olives, extracting the oil, dumping a lot of good antioxidants and fiber out the back of the factory. And then you're processing it, filtering it until you have an olive oil that you're satisfied with. So don't think you're getting into a health food there. And please don't let anybody tell you that this high-carb diet is killing you. I mean, the American Diabetic Association, the American Medical Association, the American Heart Association, everybody is going to tell you to eat more whole grains and beans. You shouldn't eat simple carbohydrates that are highly processed, stripped of fiber. This is what people think of when they're eating carbs. But when I sit down to whole grains, beans, when I sit down to my El Taco $5.60 plate, that's carbohydrates. That's my high-carb diet. And it looks great on people, excellent vitamins, minerals, accessible energy, unprocessed, unrefined, and the fiber allows it to break down in this controlled, regulated manner. Fiber is such a fabulous carbohydrate too, this gorgeous long carbohydrate molecule that then folds and bends and becomes hydroxylated and methylated so that it's completely undigestible, which is just perfect because that's what you want, is for fiber to be this undigestible product in your gut lumen. So 35 grams of fiber a day minimum, is going to get you to feel full because your intestinal lumen is going to be full of undigestible matter. It's also going to trap some hormones and pesticides and fats and things that you didn't want to absorb and allow you to flush them out in this fabulous one-way system. And you can get it so easily from food. I absolutely love to tell people to eat a high-fiber diet, and they go, well, so what is that? Like, is that Metamucil? Oh my God, why would you do that when fiber is so delicious? You could just eat so much delicious food. So no, don't go to like a methylcellulose fiber that's extracted from a wood, plant. Eat something wonderful and just live it up. So I won't spend a lot of time on this. A short story, people don't eat healthy food, and everybody eats candies and cakes every day. So there's plenty of room to help people make mild adjustments and get big returns on investment. And fiber, again, we talked about, just great stuff. So this was a tough transition for me. I wouldn't say at all that this was a simple transition for me. And I remember craving barbecued ribs, and I wrote about it in my book for a long time because I still crave barbecued ribs. I mean, they're so delicious. And I still crave, it's not that I'm not eating meat because I don't love meat. I love meat, but it's just really made for a big mess with my health, and I'm fantastic without it. I thought that I was doing okay, but then my cholesterol and my sugar went down. That was exciting. But I used to be on a nasal spray and an Allegra and a puffer every single day for allergies. And in the summer, I used my nasal spray 4 times a day. And they told me if you use it that often, you're going to end up getting cataracts early. But I was like, if I use it any less often, I can't even live. I'm so clogged. And once I got the dairy out, the clog just disappeared. It's amazing. And my husband had a very similar experience. I never use anything for allergies anymore. And I used to have great energy, but now I have like endless energy. So you really can live your very best life on this plan. But when you tell people that they need to quit eating these foods, we didn't grow up in a healthy household. We ate a ton of Salisbury steak dinners because my mom at the time was buying into the marketing that was saying, don't waste your valuable, important brain on cooking food for your family. You shouldn't do that. You should have somebody else do it. And here's where Banquet and Stouffer come in. And I'm not going to argue that we need to tie somebody up in the kitchen, because a lot of this food is simple. You make a bunch of brown rice on Sunday night, and then you can have a stir fry one night, beans and rice another night. My food comes together very, very quickly on this. So I'm not tied in the kitchen, And even if you're not, there's so many wonderful places, even if you love to cook, there's so much wonderful takeout, there's easy food. It doesn't require, one person to be 100% committed to being the cook of the family. You really can do this with a regular American family where everybody's working. But to tell somebody that Salisbury steak or their meatballs or whatever was not good, people, that was what I ate. That was my childhood food. That was my food. for the first 35 years of my life. So you can't tell me that that was unhealthy food. You have to tread really carefully around managing some of these old standbys that people have loved. People will tell us all the time that this weight is superglued. We just had a gal working with the Get Wasted director in Cleveland who said, this weight is superglued to me. It's never coming off. I have had it my whole life. She's down 17 pounds. So you can have some really great weight changes when you thought that it was never going to happen. A lot of people give themselves treats with food. Like at the end of a work week, I used to go eat some chicken wings and drink beer with my girlfriends. And I can't do that anymore. You can't even really go to the wing place. You can't eat wings anymore. I mean, there's just nothing to eat there besides wings. So now we go to a Chinese place, and I have some edamame, and they have other food, and it works out fine for us. So you just have to change your treats. Or maybe you could just skip that plan and go for a long walk together, or go to the beach and swim together. Change your treats around, but that takes some innovation. And I used to be able to just go with the flow. I'll have this lasagna, or I'll have whatever. Now I have to tell them, I want you to make this with a marinara sauce. I'd prefer to go no oil tonight. Make sure that's a whole grain pasta. That's, I mean, you know, sometimes I'll tease the gal, is your pencil sharpened? Because I have a whole bunch of stuff to tell you. So sometimes you can just, you know, you have to be ready to sort of not go with the flow. And then, of course, there's normal BMs. I mean, a lot of my patients have a bowel movement every morning or every other morning. When you start to have a bowel movement all the time, it's, you know, after every meal, 2 times a day, 3 times a day, that's different. And the other funny thing that I bet people tell me is they used to run and go, and I used to do this, like it was time to go to the bathroom, I'd have to be like, okay, what am I reading? Where was that magazine? Because you're going to be in there for a while, you know, and then you have to get your reading material and get ready to sit down. Well, now, you know, I mean, and you get ready to go to the bathroom. For a while, when I first started to do this, I'd be running around with some sense of urgency looking for something to read because I had to go to the bathroom. And then I'd get in the bathroom and go to the bathroom, and then you're done. And I was like, it took me like 6 weeks before I was going, oh, okay, I don't need reading material like in the bathroom. Like the bathroom and reading material are 2 separate things now. So anyway, lots of changes in your life. Make sure that you're ready for them. And then just a quick, like 30-second thing, and then maybe I have time for 3 questions or 6 questions. No time. Okay, so I'll be back at my table, and y'all can come over there. And we have books left, and for everybody who is here tonight, we passed around the email thing. Just pop by and grab a free book on your way past. Okay. So soy products contain estrogens. The only reason that anybody is giving you a hassle about phytoestrogens in soy is because soy is coming up against meat and dairy, because they have soy milk and soy cheese and soy, fake meats. And everybody wants soy to go into a big hole and never be heard from again, at least in the meat and dairy industry. But if you are freaking out about phytoestrogens, freak out about broccoli. Just don't sleep. Because broccoli's got like 16 times the phytoestrogens of soy. But no one knows that, not even the cancer doctors, because nobody talks about broccoli, because broccoli doesn't have broccoli milk and broccoli meat. So don't worry about soy. Just live it up on soy. Great data that women who use soy, even after breast cancer, have better outcomes than women who don't. Because if they're using beans, they're not eating meat and dairy and not promoting the cancer that way. So thank you so much. I'll be at my table.